A Chinese soldier had one assignment: escort a foreign bishop to his death. He watched the man walk calmly to the execution ground, and nothing was ever the same again. Over nearly 3 centuries, 120 men and women, soldiers, farmers, priests, children, died for the same faith across the length of China. How did one soldier's witness on a death march become the founding story of an entire nation of martyrs? To understand that story, we have to go back further. Christianity had arrived in China long before any of the 120 were born. By the 17th century, Catholic missionaries had already spent decades planting small, fragile communities across the empire's vast provinces. Those missionaries came from France, Italy, and Spain, members of the Dominican, Franciscan, and other religious orders, as well as societies like the Paris Foreign Missions. But the faith did not remain foreign for long. Chinese men and women received baptism, became catechists, teachers of the faith, and in time, priests. For most of the 120, we have no birth records, no family histories, no personal writings. Their names survived because of how they died, not the ordinary details of how they lived. The earliest martyrs in this group fell as far back as 1648, and the precise dates of their deaths, let alone their births, carry real uncertainty across the historical record. What we do know is this: they came from nearly every walk of Chinese life: farmers, merchants, soldiers, mothers, young children, and men of the cloth. Among all 120, one conversion story stands out above the rest, and it begins not in a church, but on a road to an execution. Zhao Rong was a Chinese soldier assigned to escort the French missionary Bishop John Gabriel Taurin Dufresse to his death. The bishop showed no fear. He prayed quietly and walked with a composure that the young soldier could not explain and could not forget. What he witnessed on that march broke something open in him. After the bishop's death, Zhao Rong sought out the Catholic faith, was baptized, and took the Christian name Augustine. He went further still, studying for the priesthood and becoming a diocesan priest. The man who had once escorted a bishop to slaughter was now himself a shepherd of the same faith. His companions' stories are far less documented, but many were ordinary Chinese Catholics who simply refused, under threat of death, to renounce what they believed. Across nearly 3 centuries of intermittent persecution, the 120 built something that could not easily be destroyed: a living network of local Catholic communities. European missionaries from the Paris Foreign Mission Society, the Dominican Order, the Franciscan Order, and the Milan Foreign Missions fanned out across Chinese provinces, learning dialects, translating prayers, building the infrastructure of a church. But those missionaries always knew their goal was not a European church transplanted to China. It was a Chinese church, rooted in Chinese soil, led by Chinese hands. Catechesis, the handing on of the faith, fell heavily to Chinese lay people, particularly in periods when foreign priests were hunted and forced underground. Women played a central role. Some among the 120 are women, mothers, daughters, consecrated virgins, who kept the faith alive in villages where no priest could safely set foot. The persecutions were not constant. They came in waves, under different emperors and officials. Each new crackdown scattered congregations and destroyed what little documentation existed. And yet, communities reformed. Priests emerged from hiding. Children who had watched their parents arrested grew up and chose the same faith anyway. The last of the 120 died in 1930, nearly 300 years after the first. This group spans not one persecution, but an entire era of Chinese history. When the end came for each of them, the methods varied by era and by official. Beheading, strangulation, prolonged torture. Some died in prison before a sentence could even be carried out. Father Augustine Zhao Rong, the soldier turned priest, was martyred in 1815, 30 years after his baptism, and decades after the bishop whose quiet courage had first moved him. Accounts of the martyrs describe a consistent pattern, not defiance, not despair, but a stillness that confounded their executioners. For many of the 120, especially the lay Chinese members, the exact date and place of death was never written down, or if it was, those records did not survive. Yet their story was not forgotten. On October 1, 2000, the feast of China's National Day, Pope John Paul II canonized all 120 martyrs together in Rome. The canonization was not without controversy. The timing drew sharp reaction from the government of China. But for Chinese Catholics around the world, it was a long-awaited recognition. Tradition holds that miraculous cures and other signs were attributed to the intercession of individual martyrs within the group, intercession meaning prayer offered on behalf of others, and these were accepted by the congregation for the causes of saints during the canonization process. The 120 are now the patron saints of China and of Chinese Catholics, a designation that carries particular weight for a community that has lived under pressure for most of its history. Most of their personal stories are lost to us, but the Church has preserved their names, all 120, in the Roman Martyrology, the Church's official record of her martyrs, read aloud on July 9th every year. The feast of Saints Augustine Zhao Rong and his companions falls on July 9th. If their story moved you, share it with someone, and subscribe so you never miss another feast day. A new saint's story is coming very soon.